Hey, folks, welcome back to another Think With Me Thursday. I'm Justin here with Effective. This week, we're going to dive into more of the productivity side of things. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at LogSeek, which has been a really fun experiment. And today, I really want to spend some time digging into productivity systems. This has been something that's been on my mind a little bit more as of recent. And frankly, mine's a bit of a mess right now, and I think I need to spend a little bit of time digging into it. So, in the chat on YouTube right now, I have a poll going asking, would you build a productivity system fully inside of Obsidian? Let me know. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Let me know in the chat too, as well, if there's any questions or thoughts or comments, tools you think I should look at too in the midst of this process. I'd love to go down this journey with you today. Now, if you're just joining a stream for the first time, welcome. If you're not on YouTube, head on over to youtube.com/effectiveco. Catch us in the live stream there to see all the chat and participate. I will get some of your chats if you're on Twitter or on LinkedIn, but YouTube is where it's at. Plus is where you can keep up with all of the content that we're putting out here at Effective. Want to do a quick shout out too before we dive in. Last week, Clement joined as our very first YouTube member. If you're interested in joining Clement and joining and becoming a part of our channel memberships here, you can just click the join button down below the video and we'll talk about it on this stream. I'll shout your name out. You get a special place in my heart being a channel member. Plus, you get to support financially what we're doing here at Effective, creating helpful content for you to be more effective and live an impactful life. With that, the first thing I want to talk about today is different categories of productivity applications. There are a number of these that I have seen over the last few years, and there are some emerging categories that I think are interesting to talk about. I did an article about this a long time ago. Let me see if I can pull it up. I think... Yeah, I did something. I slanted it a little bit differently. I'll pull it up on screen here. I did an article. It was more of a community post. It was a year ago now. Thinking about different categories of task managers. This was an interesting slant on it. I don't think it's fully accurate. I don't fully agree with it right now. But a few that I picked were analog-based task managers, things like the bullet journal and different methodologies you can use on paper. List managers like Reminders and Google Tasks. Though Reminders has been getting a number of updates in the last couple of years from Apple, where it could be really a basic productivity contender for a lot of people. You can tag, you can set different lists, you can have smart lists. It's really kind of an interesting category or class of application now. It kind of lies in between something like Todoist and something like Google Tasks or Remember the Milk. Then there's the project manager level, which I don't agree with this classification. OmniFocus, things, and Todoist are not project managers in my mind anymore. We'll get to that in just a second. You have collaborative task managers like Asana or ClickUp. I kind of agree with that. And then PKM managers like Obsidian, Roam, and Notion. I've kind of zoomed this out, and I'd like to take a couple of seconds to get into what I think is productivity applications kind of fall into different categories. Again, I did this one kind of weird thinking about categories of task managers, but yeah. But a year ago, I did this poll. Most people were using the project manager category, like OmniFocus, things, and Todoist. So I've kind of drawn up this simple diagram in Miro to symbolize what I think the categories of task managers or productivity tools are falling into at this point in time. Up at the top, we have your traditional task manager. And this is the difference that I have seen, I guess, or mentally for me, is that OmniFocus, Things3, Todoist, these all fall in the task manager bucket. OmniFocus is not a project manager in my mind. You can manage projects in it, but a project manager we'll get into in just a moment is something a little bit broader and bigger than that. But these are your typical task managers. You can put a task in, you can check it, you can schedule dates, you can organize them into different folders or projects or whatever way works best for you. This has been the most long-standing category of productivity application out there, starting ages ago with Omni Outliner, Kinkless GTD, and a number of other apps at the beginning of the 2000s, especially with the getting things done productivity revolution that happened around then. But then another category that we have here is project managers. This is where I think the distinction becomes a little bit clearer in my mind. A to-do or a task manager is something that helps you manage your own personal life a little bit better. It's more granularly focused. It's much on a smaller scale. Project managers, I think, have two distinctive qualities about them. One is that they're designed for big picture management. There are tons of projects you can have in there. There can be a very high level overview of work happening and a very detailed level of work. And two, project managers tend to be focused and built around collaboration. So Asana, very much a team oriented project management tool. Monday, Taskade. ClickUp is an interesting one too. It's very much a team-oriented tool, but it also has a number of tools built into it, like documents and a whiteboard, similar to Miro, right inside of there. And so there's a lot of features where you can start to build project management workflows directly inside of one platform here. Whereas looking at task managers, I mean, you're not going to be building out documentation inside of OmniFocus. It's really difficult to do templating. Things is great for having a kind of a defined and opinionated way to approach scheduling and organizing your tasks, but it doesn't really do a great job of handling the big picture overviews very well, or even putting objectives inside of there. You can hack around it, of course, but to me, a project manager is something that can handle a lot of the big picture, and it's designed to work collaboratively. Next, we have PKM apps. And I intentionally split out notes apps here. We'll get into those in just a second. But PKM apps are obviously personal knowledge managers. Obsidian, Roam, RevNote. I duplicated RevNote here. We'll get that out of the way. Notion, I would consider to be one of them. Sometimes people use PKM apps for their entire productivity tool stack, and I think there are some advantages to doing that. Number one being it's all in one tool. This is the case that August Bradley makes with his Notion life operating system, his PPV methodology. Because when you have it all in one tool, you get this sort of information that can bubble up in places at the right time. Whereas if you have reference materials in a notes app, and then your tasks in a task manager, and you have other stuff in a project manager, and your planning tools over here, your day-to-day planning, it can get a little disparate and can be very difficult to integrate it all. I know this is one of the challenges that I ran into 5 or 6 years ago when managing my notes inside of Bear and then having tasks inside of OmniFocus is how do I make sense of all of it? It's not under one roof. So people can use PKM apps to build a sort of productivity system. This is the other challenge that I've seen that PKM apps can actually excel at too, is having the high level guidance principles of your life embedded right in there. So not just the principles, but objectives, things of that sort. Task managers are really good at executing, but they're not really good at seeing the big picture of your life, your objectives, goals, tracking those. PKM apps can be bent usually, and they're fairly malleable to track those things in a unified place, in addition to notes and creating things. Over here, this is, I think, one of the Well, we'll come back to planners in just a second. We'll talk about notes for a second because I did want to distinctly define notes apps as different from PKM apps. Why? Because PKM apps are built around collecting all sorts of information and putting it in one place and connecting it together in meaningful ways. Obsidian and Rome are really built around the networked thought concept. Notion is built around the structured thought concept. Notes apps are really good at capturing information, storing it there, and bring it back to refer back to it. So Evernote is awesome for this. This has been around for ages now. Apple Notes and Bear are a couple of other contenders in this category, but they're not really great at linking information together. You're not going to put a bunch of high level structure inside of these apps. And this is, in fact, I think one of the reasons why I struggled with Evernote is because I wanted features like Obsidian and Rome have to bring some high level connection and structure, but Evernote just didn't really have that. Bear actually had some wiki linking support, which is pretty great. It just didn't have the knowledge graph and the backlinking. And so that's I think Bear had a lot of potential about 4 years ago, but unfortunately the development pace really slowed down, and I haven't really seen too much about that app. So yeah, Notes is a separate category of a productivity app in my mind, but it has a specific use case. It's really good for storing information, referring back to it, and even maybe sharing it out with someone else. The newest category of apps that I've started to see is a planner style app. Some folks would see these more as calendaring. I don't really see calendaring too much as part of a productivity stack, though there are tons of calendar apps. What the real value of a calendaring app should bring is the ability to plan. Sunsama, I think, is probably the gold standard from what I have seen in this because it allows you to integrate so many different applications such as Todoist, ClickUp, Asana. You can pull tasks and things you need to do into one view here and then schedule them in a way. So where project managers and task managers really excel is the ability to organize structured information well, things that you need to get done. They don't do day-to-day planning all that well, or even week-to-week planning. It can be difficult. You can obviously you can schedule dates inside of Todoist, you can schedule dates in Asana, ClickUp, but to actually plan when you're going to do something, how you're going to do it, this is where these planning apps really excel. As I mentioned, Sunsama, there's Akiflow. Morgan is another one. It's more of a calendar app than it is a planner, but it does have some of the planning features that Sunsama and Akiflow have. Reclaim AI is also another interesting one. And then I threw Bento, Keep Productive's app, Francesco D'Alessio's app, in here because while it's not a calendaring app, it is centered around working with other tools that contain your things to do. And then this is the place that you plan your day. And then you work off of this list. It makes a lot of sense. If you're interested in checking out Bento, definitely recommend doing it. I have to applaud Francesco and his effort in building this app. It's been actually quite successful. And so I think it's a great choice, especially if you want to really hone in on what tasks that you're working on. I did a video on it. Pull it up here quick. If you're interested in checking it out, I did a first look. I will say I recorded this video in a hotel room while I was traveling for work. So if you want to check out my first look at Bento on launch day, do have a look at that app or that video. So these are the kind of 5 major categories of productivity applications. And what I have been kind of wrestling with lately is how do I sort through my own productivity system? How do I put it in a context where it makes sense to me? And how do I choose the right tools that get the job done? Now, obviously, you can just say, well, Justin, why don't you just pick a task manager and go with that? I've done that for the last like 6 years, and I always run into frictions with that. I ran in OmniFocus for a long time, and then I was using things. I've used Todoist, the bullet journal, and the task manager only approach is nice, as I mentioned, for organizing information, but I need a connection to some higher level objective that I am achieving for this to make the most sense. Otherwise, I am just clicking through tasks all day long, and I'm just trying to get to the end of my list. And obviously, I know this is a mental thing, but having a structure for it where I can see right where I'm working, these are the top 3 things that I am pursuing right now in my life, that can help me on a day-to-day basis hone in and focus on doing the work that aligns with that and saying no to the things that do not. Because a critical key of having a productivity system is you. The system is not the tooling that you pick. The system is you, but the system, the tooling supports you in the decisions that you make. So this is where I've kind of wrestled with it, and I have just been overthinking the process. And so I figured I would pop on stream this week and try to sort through some of these questions that I have. And so this is where I am kind of popping over to this section of the board here. So there's a few different components of a productivity system that I'm wrestling through, that I'm trying to decide on, figure out what I want to do and how I want to handle it. Number one being method. What do I use for a method? Getting things done doesn't really super jive with me, but I know if I move into a job, because right now I'm on the job hunt, but if I move into a job that's a little bit more of a fast pace, more managing things situation, a getting things done style system is going to serve me a heck of a lot better than what I have been doing, which has been more of a time blocking, high level projects, one thing at a time kind of approach. Getting things done systems work really well for people who have to manage things more than they have to do creation of things. So I'm wrestling, like, where do I land on a method? But then big picture, I'm also wondering, is there a tool that I can implement that allows me to be more flexible with the method that I'm using, where it can accommodate getting things done? But if I want to take a more project-oriented approach, that I can implement that in there as well. Hey, Nicholas, good to see you on the stream today. So we're just, if you're just joining too, I'm digging into some ideas about my productivity system, trying to really hone in on where I'm going to focus myself on building. Frankly, there has been a level of uncertainty and insecurity and an unwillingness to be decisive about it. And so that's kind of a problem, and I'm trying to get over that today. I also have PKM, which is a big part of it. I use Obsidian for that, and it's worked out really quite nicely. The question that I have is, if I use something like Obsidian for a task management, project management, really a productivity system, on top of it. Hey, Nicholas, thanks for becoming a member. Appreciate that today. Again, if anybody else wants to become a member, just hit the join button down below. Appreciate that a lot. Welcome to the Efficient Aficionados. It's kind of a fun name that I came up with. You can also stay effective too. So I like wordplay, and if I can make things wordplay, it can be a lot of fun. So anyway, but back on track with PKM. One of the questions that I have is, if I build a PKM system and include a productivity system in the midst of that, does that water down my PKM? Or what does it do? Like, I don't know. I do like the idea. This is where I pulled out these questions over here. Is, do I try to build something in a single system, or do I build something in a multiple tool system? I've done both, And I really like having things in a single system because it's one place for me to interact with it. And I know that I'm going to come back and interact with it. However, I keep getting pulled into multiple tool systems, mainly for the reason that keeping everything solely digital can be a big pain in the neck for me, especially if I need to take a break from being on this thing. A lot of times, if I'm sitting on my phone in the evening trying to think through things, it just doesn't work. And so that's where I really gravitated towards using something like the bullet journal system. So if I have a single system, how do I integrate it with other tooling or even a paper system as well? And this, again, kind of gets into methodology and habits. That's probably another thing I should put up here too is habits, processes, and SOPs. These four are kind of the crux of it. I have a high level framework that I've been working on developing called the VST approach. It's really cheesy. It's probably not the name that I'm going to stick with it, but I'll just kind of draw it out for you here. So VST stands for vision, strategy, and tactics. Vision is all about the idea of where are you going and what does that look like. To me, a vision looks like an annual review. I have a yearly theme. I don't get crazy into it, but I want to just at least have a high level idea of what trajectory am I on for this year? Because there are a number of different strategies that I can undertake to build that trajectory, to set my life in that direction. And then that's where the strategy comes in. The strategy is really this objectives idea of, okay, I have this vision, this theme that I'm chasing after for this year that I want to make the central focus for me. What kind of objectives, what kind of results do I want to see out of that? And then I can start to build out the different initiatives or projects that I want to undertake to get there. And then tactics is really down at this level: projects, task management, day to day and week to week planning, and then habits and the processes and SOPs or standard operating procedures that it takes to consistently execute on that. And so this is where it gets a little tricky for me, and I haven't been able to wrap my mind around it. Is how to build something that actually can encompass these things. And again, as I mentioned earlier on the stream, I might just be overthinking this a little bit, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure that out. And so maybe if you see something where it's like, oh, I think you're overthinking this, maybe making it too complicated, just let me know in the chat. I want to try to be transparent in this as possible, because this is not easy. These are not easy problems to solve. We can try to make them easy, but it's definitely not the most challenging thing or the most, I don't know the word I'm trying to think of here. It's not the simplest thing to try to sort through, especially because it's kind of a nebulous idea. So anyway, that's kind of the VST framework. New name pending on that. I'll probably do some kind of a video on it and potentially even incorporate it into some sort of training course once I get it all sorted out. But I've been gravitating a bit more towards this single system idea, and I've been wondering about using Obsidian for it. So I've got a few of you have voted on the poll in the YouTube chat. Would you build a productivity system in Obsidian? 80% of you said yes, and 20% said no. So 8 of you so far have said yes, 20% no. Let me know what you think about that. Because I think It's very possible to build a good productivity system in Obsidian. Nicole Vanderhoven, if you haven't checked out her channel, YouTube channel, she's got some awesome content for Obsidian over here. I just was checking out a video to, let's see, where was it? She did a goals video in Obsidian, and I really like the way that she pulled it together. I'm gonna post this in the chat, but if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how she does OKRs or goals inside of Obsidian, by all means, check out that video. It's a really good overview of how you could do it, not even just in Obsidian, but literally in any other software. But that's kind of the idea that I'm trying to get at, is how do I pull all of it into one place, to meaningful, where I don't feel like I'm losing information. Because the other challenge that I have had with task managers in a digital context is that there just gets to be too much stuff in there, and it can be difficult for me to understand it. So it's how do I phrase this? I want the ability to focus, and then I also want information integrity, I guess, is one of the way you could think about it. Let me get these guys out of here for now. So information integrity. Obviously, the big component of having integrity of your information in a productivity system is constant or consistent reviews. Let me know too if the stream is dropping out, because it looks like it is on YouTube a little bit. If the stream is kind of looking bad, let me know. There might be an issue with Restream doing it, because it seems to be working okay on my side. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out on the channel quick. Just want to make sure the stream quality is there. Yeah, it's tripping out, isn't it? Yep, totally lost it. Okay, now we're on a major delay. Sorry about that, everybody. It looks like the stream is now back and going. Big pain in the neck there, so I apologize for that. We'll get going here again. Sorry about the challenges with the stream there. But yeah, so information integrity, let's get back to that. Information integrity is driven really by an effective review process for your stream, or brains on stream now, for your productivity system, but also just having it all accessible in one place, but also not overwhelming. That's the one thing I kept running into with OmniFocus when I was using that, is I would just constantly find myself overwhelmed. What do I do next? This is where that planning set of tools really comes in. It's where I really like Sunsama, is that it's really easy to plan inside of it and stay focused on what is the highest value for me for that day. I make a decision when I'm planning, and then I work off that one list. Or even using a tool like Bento really can help with that. So yeah, that's just kind of the trick with it is I'm wondering where to land with it. So coming down to maybe being a little bit more decisive about things, I'm going to think through some options. I'm just going to put together some packages. You can tell me what you think. Great. Glad to see that it's working now, Nicholas. I think Restream must have had a big blip. So that's kind of unfortunate. We're going to zoom in. Package one would be more of the connected tool set. So it'd be Todoist. Since I'm already using that, I would use a tool like Sunsama. Obsidian for PKM only. Another question that I need to figure out too is that I'm going to use something like Sunsama. Where do I host my calendaring? I'm currently using iCloud Calendar for it. It doesn't work with iCloud Calendar. It only works with Outlook and Google Apps. So then do I look to move my calendaring to something different? Do I look to move my email somewhere different? It's been kind of a pain point that I've been trying to solve lately, and I don't really know a good solution for it. Oh, let's see here. Looking at our categories of applications. I probably would, for more offline work, I would use bullet journal. More for journaling and capturing and then trying to make sure that's synced up with Todoist. And also using Notion. I use Notion currently for my content calendar and a couple of other more structured data management aspects of it. And I guess the other side of it, so that's package one, is to try to create a multi-app kind of integrated system. Obsidian is for more of the content creation thought process. Todoist is where I'm managing my projects and tasks, and Sama is where I'm doing my day planning. Notion's where I'm managing a lot of what I do at the business here with Effective. And then the bullet journal is kind of my offline journaling, capture, thinking through things that needs to get synced up with Todoist and Obsidian at some point and the rest of the system. Package two. The other system that I'm considering using is having Obsidian at the core of it for productivity and PKM. Putting it all in one spot where I can have my high level vision and values, my strategy of objectives, and then my day-to-day task management and project management inside of there. And then the question is, do I use Obsidian? Day planning? Or Sunsama? I like Sunsama's calendar integration. I think that's really helpful. Obsidian obviously does not integrate directly with Sunsama, but I could pretty easily just pick out the 5 or 7 tasks that I'm going to do for the day. I'll throw Bento on that list too, because that's kind of a clever way to do things. And then the other question that I have is how do I sync up the bullet journal with it? So basically keeping like the bullet journal as my analog workspace and then syncing that up with Obsidian, building the structures out inside of there. Nicholas is asking, what is it about Todoist that I like over other to-do apps? It's a great question. I'll pull it up here real quick. Todoist. So I like Todoist. Actually, Todoist was, I think, the first productivity app that I used because it was free. I was a college student. I didn't really have $120 to drop on OmniFocus, or I just really didn't see the value in dropping that much money to start with. So I'm really familiar with it. I also think it's the best task manager for people who have cross-platform needs. So if you need to work on Windows, on Mac OS, iOS, Android, whatever it is, like if you've got a mix of devices, Todoist is going to best serve you. I also like its simplicity in its design. If I were fully on Mac OS and iOS, because I have a Windows PC back here that I primarily use, I might switch that into being my streaming PC and doing most of my work on Mac OS and iOS again. We'll see. But if I were to stick to Mac OS and iOS, I would probably pick Things 3 if I was just looking at a task management app. It's really easy to capture. It's really easy to get the stuff into it. So that's really kind of why I'm drawn to Todoist. It's inexpensive. It is really quite powerful. You can organize it. It's very flexible for organization, and it's accessible just about on every platform. Hansi Meyer, about the question, it depends on what you understand under productivity: a task list, project management tool, database for reading notes. Yeah, I would say that for me, all of those things encompass productivity. And so I am literally looking at building an all-in-one system inside of Obsidian, to where Obsidian handles all of that stuff. Now, obviously, there are things that Obsidian doesn't do well, like calendaring. Those have to be in external systems to really be effective. But overall, I think Obsidian would excel. Coming back over here, I'm just going to make an amendment to this. Todoist or Things 3. I've been kind of drawn back to Things 3 a little bit. And I know Francesco D'Alessio is a friend of mine, but I know he just posted a video talking about not switching applications so much. And I am like one of the biggest defenders of that over the last couple years, because I haven't found systems and setups that work well for me. So that's kind of a challenge. Yeah, Nicholas, I've gone, like I was just talking about, I've gone back and forth using a ton of different apps too. And I think it's okay. I think as I mentioned a week or two ago, switching apps is not a bad thing. It's usually just the reason that you're switching apps. If you're switching apps just to try new things because you think a new thing is cool, maybe don't do that. But if you're trying to find a workflow that works for you, it's really good to experiment. And sometimes that experimentation requires switching things up. I know one of the things that I have said, and I mentioned it earlier in the stream, is that you're the center of your system. And so 9 times out of 10, it's usually not a tooling problem, but it's more of a you problem when it comes to productivity apps if they're not working out. Sometimes it's just more of a mental approach of how you're handling things. And so maybe I need to take my own advice in thinking through this. But at the same time, one of the other things that I'm trying to build is more of a healthy routine. And so let me draw this out for you. I'll use these. Kind of a philosophy that I'm trying to implement. Let's make this a darker green because I think that'll just look better. A philosophy that I'm trying to implement in some way is energy management. And I've been reading a book lately called At Your Best by Carey Nieuwhof. It really resonated with me because Carrie went through a period of burnout probably 15 years ago now, or something like that. And he's spent the last number of years since 2006 or whatever, maybe not 15 years, but well, close, probably 16. Trying to narrow down how to build a healthy, sustainable rhythm and routine. And he came up with kind of this idea of energy management using green, yellow, and red zones in your calendar, where you think through what your highest energy point in the day is, and then your lowest energy points in the day, and then wherever else, in between is your yellow zones. So your highest energy is your green zone, your lowest energy is your red zone, anything in between is your yellow zone. And you're judicious about protecting that green zone and doing the highest value work that you can in that zone. And then also making sure that you're intentionally using your red zone and your yellow zone for other things. Because you can really get some high leverage work done in your highest energy state if you can build enough momentum and have enough clarity on what should be done in that green zone. And so he's talking about building sustainable rhythms where it's not about necessarily doing less, but it's about doing it in a sustainable way. And sometimes we just tend to push, and even trying to do high value stuff in our red zones, where that can be detrimental to us in the long term. So one of my aims with building out this productivity system of sorts, again, it's not all about the tooling, it's about the processes, and it's about the reflection, and it's about the time that you spend iterating on it. But I want to build in this concept with it of making sure that I'm scheduling activities for these green, yellow, and red zones appropriately, because I want to build a sustainable rhythm in my life. Again, this is a mindset shift that I've been making, because I think after reading the book Time Off, there was this thing that started to happen to me about maybe I need to do less. And I think that wasn't necessarily the right mindset, because it's not about necessarily doing less. At some level, it is. But that's not the end goal. The end goal is finding a way to maximize what you are best at doing in a sustainable fashion. So it's about saying no to things that you're not good at or that you don't need to be doing, and saying yes to the things on the holistic picture of your life that are the best things for you to be doing. And then wholeheartedly going after those. And so this is where the green, yellow, and red zones come in, is really honing in on building that into your schedule and being judicious about it and going after those things passionately. So yeah, I guess that's one of the considerations too, as far as building a productivity system that I'm trying to make is how do I integrate vision, strategy, and tactics all together? Make sure that they line up, and then how do I make sure I'm planning my day in a way so that I'm leveraging my best time in the best ways possible. And I know the other thing that I need to make sure that I'm doing with this right now, that I hinted at earlier, is keeping a set of tooling available that's flexible. Hi, Rhonda. Welcome to the stream today. Yeah. Pull this down here. An app I came across today. called Legend. I have not tried it out at all, but I might just to check it out. It seems like it's a bit of a cross between Obsidian and Sensama, where it integrates with different tooling and it pulls it all into one view, but it also allows you to organize your tasks a little bit more freely. As you can see in the video here. So you can basically create whatever kind of filters that you want in different boards, I think is what it's called. And then it integrates. But then it's also links things together too. I'll have to explore this a little bit. Maybe we'll do that on stream next week. I will have to reschedule this stream next week. By the way, it won't be on Thursday because I have my kids that day. So it'll either be Wednesday or Friday next week. It'll be the stream. But yeah, I want to, let's see here. Let's load up the help file. Oh, interesting. So it actually uses Legend for the help file. That's pretty cool. Workflow examples. I'm interested in seeing how they integrate. Yeah, this seems really interesting. This could be an option for, because all the tooling's built in there. However, I do think this could relatively easily be built in Obsidian with a couple of plugins. But this seems to make the effort relatively frictionless versus having to build all of it out yourself. Or maybe I was thinking about another software that integrated pretty well. I have to do a little bit more research because I thought this one integrated with other tools, but I could be wrong. Yeah, this has been one of the concerns that I have, Rhonda. It is challenging to use Obsidian for your entire productivity system. One of the philosophies that I've had is that if you're going to use Notion or Roam, Logseek, or Obsidian, a PKM tool for your productivity system, you should plan to spend 10% of your time or more on making it work. Just because you have to build all of it out. And you're going to have to make tweaks to it. You're going to need to build templates. Now, obviously, there's a certain point where that levels off and you're really only making minor changes to the app or to your system versus making big, broad changes to the concepts and ideas that you're using in there. That is the power of iteration. But initially up front, I mean, even maybe as much as 20% of your time might be spent building out the system inside of Obsidian. And for some people, that's just too much of an overhead. Rhonda's using tasks, day planner, and Kanban for a lot of my workflow. When I use Obsidian lately, I've been using Logseek for tasks. Yeah, Logseek has some powerful stuff for tasks, as I was exploring last week. The filtering in there is pretty cool, or querying rather. So that is an option. I think the thing that I am struggling the most with productivity, building a productivity system right now, is really just deciding. I think that's probably the biggest challenge that I have, is just which process do I go with? Do I go with the disjointed bundle, or do I go with the all-in-one? Now, for the all-in-one, I could use Notion. There are a number of people that have done that. That seems to be the most popular use for Notion, is to create some kind of life management or life OS system. August Bradley does it. I know Tiago Forte does some of this with the Second Brain. Thomas Frank. A number of folks use Notion as their all-in-one personal dashboard. And I guess at some level, that's what I want to achieve with Obsidian. I just don't trust putting all of my data inside of Notion. Notion would be way easier to pull off some of the personal dashboard aspects that I want to have. But I think the note-taking and linking capabilities in Obsidian, and the customization, the fact that it's all local and I'm end-to-end encrypted syncing using Obsidian Sync, is what draws me the most to it. But for a lot of integrative capabilities, Notion is by far better. And when I mean integrative, I don't necessarily mean outside services, but it's easy to build. You can refactor pages more easily. You can share pages more easily. I know Obsidian has a collaboration feature that they're testing. I have a feeling that that's going to be a long road before that is fully ready to go, because collaboration is not an easy problem to crack. And there can be a lot of, from a developer perspective, there can be a lot of performance issues that you have to sort out along the way to make that work properly. Rhonda says, honestly, I use Logseek, Obsidian sometimes, and ClickUp for project management if using more than a few people on a project. You're right. As you develop, your needs could change. 100%. 100%. This is why I think I have hesitated so much on making a decision. Throw out the 10% if you use Notion. Yeah, that might be 25% at that point. Number one reason why I don't use Notion, they save your data. Yeah, I mean, it's a balancing point. You know, I've oscillated on the spectrum over the course of years when it comes to that for privacy. On one end, having very highly private services is great, but the major trade-off there is convenience. There's a lot of hoops that you have to go through. So, for example, I've been using Proton Mail for the last couple of years to run my email accounts, and it's a great service. They do a fantastic job, but the challenge that I've had with it is that it doesn't integrate with anything. You have to use the Proton Mail app if you're going to use it on your phone. You have to use Proton Bridge if you're going to use a mail client locally. And initially, that did not work for me at all. On my Mac Mini that I had when I had it set up, it crashed every single time. Now that I have a Windows machine and an M1 Mac, it it's worked a lot better. But initially, it just froze everything up and it didn't actually work. And so there are all these caveats to being in privacy centric services. When you have something like Notion, on the other hand, obviously nothing is end to end encrypted there. It's all fully in the cloud. There's no offline mode for the data. You don't technically, I mean, it is your data, but you don't technically own it. It can be difficult to export it because you have to get it in the file formats that Notion wants you to have it. It's why I like Obsidian, because it's all just text files and native file formats on your system. So convenience is large, but then privacy is forsaken a bit. And so it's hard to find a middle ground between the two. Legend looks interesting because they do end-to-end encryption with this zero knowledge encryption. So that might be something we're checking out in this process anyway. Yeah. So sorry, I clicked on the wrong one there. ClickUp, Roam. That's kind of harkening back to the conversation about time investment. Yeah, I've used ClickUp a little bit myself, and you're right. A lot of these freeform project management apps can be really, really time consuming to get going on. Obsidian, definitely. One school of thought: are you asking the right questions about a productivity system? Now you're getting me going. I guess I would ask you a question, Rhonda. What can you clarify that a little bit more? Are there questions that you think I should be asking that I'm not? This is why I like doing this in public, because I know I have blind spots. I am not perfect at this. Even though I've been teaching people this stuff for like 4 years now, I am not perfect at it, and I don't have it all sorted out. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm coming back to with a lot of this is, am I asking the right questions? Got some thinking to do on that now. Yeah. I think one of the big picture things too is, does it matter? That's something that I have to come back to a lot and remind myself of. It's like, am I getting myself too deep into thinking through something that in the end it doesn't really matter? Because is it helping me get work done? I think that, is it helping me get to my objectives? Is it helping me execute on my vision? That is what I want to optimize for in any system that I'm doing. And honestly, it could be just as simple as keeping a list of things that I need to get done, having a whiteboard over here where I write down my high priority items, and then referring to that on a day-to-day basis, and then planning my day around that. Might be just something as simple as that. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Because the drawback too of building an invested, complex productivity system is the time and attention that it takes to maintain it. This is one of the challenges that I've had with getting things done. But at the same time, I've also recognized that over the last 18 months, not having something solid, because I've been a little bit more flexible on my productivity system. I think I've recognized that I've been a bit more challenging to navigate the things that I need to do to stay focused, because I haven't always been clear. Clarity is the number one thing that helps you move forward. And if you don't have it, it's really easy to just get caught in circles or end up on YouTube. And so having the ability to be clear, I think, is a really important thing. That's probably at the crux of it. If you're clear on vision, if you're clear on your objectives, and if you're clear on your day-to-day planning, I think that's great. It probably helps you really keep going. So whatever, I guess, big picture, clarity. I'm going to change this. Clarity is probably one of the biggest objectives of this. Rhonda, I was where you were at, then I realized I wasn't asking the right questions about my needs. Or am I addicted to productivity systems? And seriously, if or when I find that diamond in the rough, would I be disappointed? Just a thought. Yeah, I mean, I think you hit at a really important point there. We cannot find, there is no perfect productivity system. Like, there just never will be. There will always be needs to improve. That's why there's always never one perfect productivity app. There's never one perfect thought process towards things. This is why I'm a heavy advocate of starting where you are and then iterating and improving from there. Because when you can start where you are, iterate from where you are, and then make consistent improvements on a trajectory over time, then that's where I think you start to see the biggest traction. So I know, as James Clear talks about it, it's getting 1% better every day. It's the iteration that is where I think the magic happens. Rhonda talking again here. You may feel stuck in your wonderful productivity system. There is a middle ground, and that's where the questions lie. Yeah, and I think this is where, again, coming back to the fact that I have just been indecisive about these things. And I'm trying to get to the point where it's just like, no, I just need to make a decision. I need to decide. I need to hone in and just say, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm committing to. And beyond that, I'm just not going to waver from it. I need to hone in on this system, iterate, and go from there. And so I think what I'm getting to here is just more of a set of principles for the productivity system that I'm trying to build. And then tooling doesn't really matter. You know, because there's also consistent habits. I'm going to extend this out a bit here. I'm going to make habits this, well, I already used that color. Make habits this teal color, because there's capture is a habit that needs to happen to be effective at this. Review. And then I'm going to say objective setting and review. Let's do like regular system review. So this would be like the weekly review. Something that I found was interesting, though, is that Tiago Forte, I was just watching his interview with Francesco over on the Keep Productive channel earlier today. The frequency in which he does his weekly reviews is dependent upon how fast his landscape is changing. It's not something I had considered, but it makes a ton of sense. So, for example, when he's more in management mode and he's got a lot of things going on, things are moving quickly, a lot of stuff is changing around him. He said he does his review every day, or can be even daily. But then when he's in more of a focused, deep work content creation season, he might do his weekly review once a week or once every 2 weeks. Just it depends. Rhonda's saying, love the deep thinking. Certain amount of flexibility isn't much. Adjustments will need to be accepted, and frankly, being proactive in identifying the adjustments. Thanks for identifying your wonderful thoughts. Didn't mean to take over the conversation, but you helped me as well. Hey, I don't want anybody who comes on these streams to think like they're taking over the conversation. This is literally a place where we can come together and have conversations about these topics. Productivity systems, PKM, different concepts related to that. I like to do this in public because we get to have these chats. It's something I find really helpful. And in fact, it's really what got me deeper into productivity. Back when I joined a forum probably 5 or 6 years ago, The reason I joined the forum and started posting is because I just didn't know anybody in real life that was into productivity. I didn't have anybody to talk through these concepts and ideas. And so being able to do this in public instead of just sitting in my head helps me refine the ideas, but then I know it also helps other people too. So don't ever think that if you've got questions or comments or you have ideas to share that you're interrupting or taking over the stream. This is literally a two-way street here. It's just that I'm sitting on a video camera. Um, yeah, decision is conceptual. Anyway, wonderful thinking. Need to go. Take care. Made my day. Well, glad to make your day, Rhonda. Glad to have you on the stream today, too. So, major habits. I'm also going to annual review. I do have another Miro board. I'm going to open up quick. I made a content board recently just to do all of my content creation stuff on here. Both stuff that I can share publicly and just stuff that I'm iterating and working on. By the way, I'm working on version 2 of Obsidian Made Simple. So if you're interested, you can head on over to obsidianmadesimple.com. I'm hopefully gonna have that in the next couple of weeks. I'm working on building out a big module called PKM Basics that I want to include in it. That's not directly focused on Obsidian, but it lays a lot of the undergirding concepts as to why PKM is important. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. But just to let you know that's going on. All right, where am I at over here and what was I coming here for? This is where I've done a lot of my work on productivity systems and thinking. This is a hierarchy that I see as being kind of how this works together. I don't think that's accurate anymore. So this is kind of overarching life, values. The theme is what I've talked about, my yearly theme. The objectives that spin off of that, OKRs really is what they are. And then projects. I'll just put projects. Leave that as it is. Areas. I've toyed around with the idea of doing some kind of a sprint, like just saying this week is what I'm focusing on, or this month is what I'm focusing on. I don't know. I haven't really figured out if that makes a lot of sense. Checking in on the would you build a productivity system in Obsidian poll. Of 21 votes, 67% of you have said yes, 33% no. There's still a majority of you that would build a productivity system in Obsidian. I think that's notable. Day planning. This was kind of an original idea. This was taken from Oliver Burkeman's 3-3-3 rule. 3 hours of deep work, 3 shallow work tasks, and then 3 maintenance items. I like that idea. I also like the green, yellow, red zones. I could probably mesh the two of those together a little bit. Let's see here. This is also the area that I've been trying to get to, is having a dashboard. Do you have an opinion on DevonThink? Can't find anything comparable, but prefer cross-platform solutions. Yeah, so DevonThink is an interesting thing. Honestly, haven't really seen anything comparable to it that is cross-platform. I still use it a bit on macOS, largely just for documentation management and kind of my file cabinet, my digital file cabinet. But yeah, I'm with you. Unless something new has cropped up, I haven't found much that actually works. That's from 2 years ago, just about. Yeah, I mean, you could probably hack together Zotero, but frankly, I don't have a good answer on that one. I think DevonThink does what it does very, very well, but I don't necessarily think that it's an ideal solution for certain things. Like it does, if you have a paperless library and you want to keep all of your tax documentation and all of your paper, if you don't want to have a filing cabinet at home, DevonThink is incredible for that. Its deduplication features are amazing. Its ability to OCR is wonderful. Its integration with other tools and being able to index files inside of there. So if you can have files inside of a database inside of DevonThink, or you can have files in a folder on your computer, whether they're synced over iCloud Drive or Dropbox or something else, and you can index them inside of DevonThink. That is really helpful in my mind because it gives you a ton of flexibility. You can access those files in other applications. You can index your Obsidian Vault inside of DevonThink. But outside of that, I mean, I know some people like Karashdini use DevonThink for note taking and they integrate it with Obsidian because it also does wiki linking as well. But I struggle to find a use case outside of being just a really, really good digital file cabinet for DevonThink. It excels at it, and I think if you need something like that, DevonThink is worth the investment. But anyway, this is what I keep coming back to. It's building some kind of a big picture dashboard where they can get into different areas and seeing my goals or my objectives, and then getting into ideas, projects, and actions for those areas. And then being able to use a planning tool up here. Now, this has been something I've been working on for probably about a year. I need to make some modifications. The other thing I've been thinking about too is more household management stuff and how it fits into this system. You know, do I use a shared tool like Notion to build out household management workflows and document processes, document information that I can share with my wife? I think instead of having objectives for each area, Noel asked, do I have my requirements and use cases listed anywhere? Kind of. It's kind of what I've been building out here in this document as we've been talking today. Of course, it's Miro is kind of goofy. It does this weird thing sometimes where my scroll wheel scrolls and my scroll wheel zooms. So these are kind of the objectives that I'm needing to build. I need to decide if I'm going to try to build a single system using package 2 down here, or a multiple tool system like package 1. So using more traditional tools like Todoist or Things 3, or trying to build it all into Obsidian and use some kind of planning tool and review processes to make sure my paper work, stuff in the bullet journal, ends up synced up with it. Making clarity the focus of it so that I can stay clear, making information integrity a priority, that flexibility in the system itself, being able to adjust to a number of different use cases, whether I am solely building a content business or I'm working in a more rapid moving management style opportunity. And so that's something there. And then energy management, as I was talking about the green, yellow, and red zones earlier being a priority, to be able to try to build some kind of a sustainable rhythm. And then over here, some of the requirements I need to be able to easily capture. I have to build in regular system reviews. I have to regularly review and set objectives. I need to do an annual review. Day plan, like being able to plan my day. Is also quite important to me in that process. I'm usually relatively flexible about how I handle projects and tasks. So, for example, like I don't really need to stick to such a stringent getting things done methodology for it. I also don't necessarily need to be very granular when planning out my tasks. But I also recognize too that having consistency in this area is valuable. Just gonna make things pretty now. So that's kind of what I've been building out, Noel. I'm not entirely certain what that's going to look like yet. But if I were to narrow down the main ideas here, this is what it would be. And I know I could build this in a lot of different ways. It's just a matter of, again, deciding what way I want to build it. Because I don't want to get into the trap again of, well, this isn't working for me, or this is not jiving with the way that I think. I want to have that flexibility built into the system that for different types of use cases. Because I also know, like, when I have used systems like Things 3 or Todoist in the past for content projects like this, it tends to get a little bit bloated, frankly. I need a place to manage checklists for content projects to be able to just keep track of status on them versus a list of things to do. Status is probably the more important aspect for big picture projects like content, where there's a specific process that it goes through. And so I'll just show you my content calendar right now inside of Notion. It's very simple, but I have a couple of templates out here. This is a live stream show that I've been thinking about trying to do at some point. Toolbox Tips is a newsletter that I've been trying to do. Process is my previous podcast. YouTube video, Think With Me Thursday. Those are the two that I mainly do. And so you can see that I have, go back a month. You can see I have completed live streams, videos. Some of these videos were edited out of a live stream, so I clipped it and then published it because they tend to do better that way. The information is really valuable. Not everybody's going to sit down and watch an hour or a 90-minute live stream, but they will watch a 10-minute video clip from a live stream, and then they might join a live stream at some point later in time. And so that's where some of these have come from. And then I have some editing to catch up on. I have some live streams I need to go back and edit. So a couple weeks, the last 3-4 weeks, I've got to go through and clip stuff. I use a tool called Descript to get all that done. But for example, inside of here, we'll look at today's. It's really simple how I structure these. I'm just bullet listing what I'm digging into. I'm plugging something that week. So today we're plugging channel memberships. If you're not a channel member, be sure to join. Hit the join button below. Just support what we're doing here at Effective. And then where am I sending people next? I always want to be thinking about, hey, if there's something more of value for you, where can you go? For a YouTube video, this is another video on the channel. Or maybe it's signing up for a guide. For these live streams, the channel memberships is going to be the main plug. But if you want just something to consume next, I have a guide called a weekly review checklist, where you can go in and you can kind of learn the basics of a weekly review if you want to brush up on that. And so we'll talk about that at the end of the stream here today. But it's really simple. And then I just have a description where I can easily copy and paste all the links that I want to share inside of the description for people who come to it later. On a normal video, this one here. So I did a video this week on building a productivity system based upon your career type. There's a few different things that I'm tracking inside of here. First is the first 15 seconds. What is that intro, that hook? And then what's the thumbnail going to be? What's the title going to be? And where am I sending folks? As I mentioned, this is literally a video that I'm pointing people to. And I'm outlining it, making sure that I'm hitting all the stuff, that I'm writing the description so it's easy in there. I have a little checklist, and I haven't been using these as much as I should or need to, but I will do that. I do have a number. So getting back to the idea of status here. For these types of projects, status is more important to me than a list of things to do, because it shows me the stage at which things are at. So you can see I have idea, outlining and prep, creation, editing, distribution, and completed. Creation is idea is just a big picture idea. Outlining and prep is making sure that I'm filling out all the things that need to be taken care of. Creation is literally sitting down and actually making it. Editing is what it sounds like. It's editing it to get ready to publish. And then distribution is, how am I going to repurpose that content and share it in new ways? So for a live stream like this, distribution is taking clips of it and putting them on the YouTube channel. It can also be taking an idea and sharing it with other people in different ways. So such as a YouTube community post or a Twitter post, a LinkedIn post, getting the word out in other places. I'm trying to be more intentional about creating distribution plans for content. And so using a tool like Todoist, OmniFocus, or Things 3 feels a little bit limiting for these kinds of projects, because the work is a little bit more nebulous, but it's also much more involved than just checking off a box and churning out widgets. Do I find OmniFocus to be cumbersome compared to more accessible tools? That's an interesting question. Let's pull up OmniFocus. I haven't used OmniFocus in probably 3 years. And I know it's hyper powerful for what it does. It's one of the reasons that I got into it. It's great for GTD methodology, but it can be really complex. It has a very high learning curve for what it is. I think it's funny, these images are so small with the screen size that I have here. So I guess to answer your question, Is it cumbersome? That depends. If you're used to a high focus, getting things done workflow where you've got that process defined, I would say no. It's not cumbersome. It's powerful. But if you're not necessarily someone who is following GTD to the letter, OmniFocus can be a bit much. And the reason for that is you have to figure out your workflow in there. It's difficult to set up OmniFocus and just to dive in and start using it. There's a long time to value with OmniFocus. And as a result of that, I think that's what makes OmniFocus cumbersome compared to more accessible tools like Todoist or Things 3. If we look at Things 3, you can find just a picture of the design. Of course, they don't really do that much on their website, do they? Let's see here. Of course, make it really difficult to see stuff. We'll just pull on this one for a second here on the screen. If you look at Things 3, it is cleanly designed. The panes on the left-hand side make a ton of sense if you're just getting started with it. The design and the user experience makes it a lot easier to jump into. Same thing with Todoist. You kind of get a good sense of what it's about. You have projects, you throw tasks in there. The getting started guide for Todoist is very simple. And so, yeah, it just depends on how you're approaching productivity. Like I mentioned, if you are a getting things done expert and you want to really hone in on crafting a GTD-oriented workflow, OmniFocus is amazing for that. But if you're not sure where you're landing or you need more flexibility, or you don't necessarily want as much power and fiddliness in your task manager, then an option like Things 3 or Todoist is going to be a lot more useful, because while there's power there, it's not stuck right in front of your face. I also think the other thing that really hinders OmniFocus right now is its design. It feels like an old application. I know they're working on OmniFocus 4, but one of the consistent things that I've been hearing from people who have been using it is that it still feels like a kludgy app at times. No, that's not to say it's not good. I haven't used it. I can't comment on it. But I just kind of question if Omni Group is going the right direction with it. I don't know. Getting things done seems to be kind of being a system that is fading out of favor with people, but it doesn't mean that it's dead or gone or anything like that. It's just that people are finding more flexibility in more PKM type styles of it. Yakov, yeah, review perspective is awesome for OmniFocus. I would hands down say this is one of the game-changing features for most people who use OmniFocus, is being able to set a review period on a project. So you don't have to go and manually review every project every single week. If you've got 300 projects in there because you're a dedicated GTD user and doing if it is more than one task in one sitting, then it requires a project, then that makes a lot of sense to use that. You can set an individual review period on each. So you can say this one project is going to review every week, and this other one is going to review once a month. And every Friday or whenever you do your weekly review, you literally go into there and you click that review perspective and you review those projects and make sure they're up to date. Eldar, welcome. Glad that you found the channel, for one. And two, I see you have another comment here. Very interested in productivity and building systems in general. Is there some type of formal education road I can go down? Or what else would you recommend? There really is not a formal education road for productivity. There is a strong correlation in the business world with operations and productivity, especially when you start getting into tech companies and software as a service. There tends to be a lot of overlap with some productivity principles and building systems with the operations department. But as far as a track or education path to pursue, there's really not much. There's content creators like myself who offer courses. There are coaches that you can hire. YouTube is an amazing place. There are tons of blogs, a number of books on productivity that are out there. I would just recommend, if you're looking to level up your skills, to start reading some awesome books and consuming videos on YouTube about it. Joining these live streams is an excellent way to talk about some of these concepts around personal productivity. Getting Things Done is kind of one of the de facto standard books that people recommend, by David Allen. It's a little bit dated these days. I know it's been updated for the digital age, but GTD was really constructed around paper prior to digital task managers. David Sparks, Max Sparky, has some awesome courses on using tools like OmniFocus and things of that sort that really teach some good productivity principles. Tim Stringer's Learn OmniFocus, if you're interested in going down that road, also teaches productivity principles in relation to the tool OmniFocus. There are so many ways that you could go with this, though. And a lot of people get focused. I would just say a lot of people get focused on apps. But don't get too focused on apps. Productivity is for a purpose, and the purpose is leading yourself. And when you can lead yourself well, that is when productivity lines up. That's when your life starts to line up. And when you're starting to make strides in that area, I think that's when a lot of beneficial things happen. So if you're looking for a work path, definitely start to explore operations. There can be some cool stuff that happens there. But if you're just looking for your own personal life, just start consuming as much content as you can. There's some amazing resources out there and some awesome creators. Francesco D'Alessio, I've mentioned a number of times on the podcast, Keep Productive. He's got an awesome channel focusing on apps. And then a number of creators like myself who focus more on thought process and mindset and how to approach different problems. Well, I think I have a lot of work cut out for myself here. But I appreciate you all working with me throughout this live stream on just trying to sort out this productivity system, these ideas. And if you have any questions, by all means, after the fact, leave them in the comments below. You can always sign up over at thinkeffective.co. You can always send me an email over there on our contact page if you have anything in particular. There is a form as well in the comments or in the description if you have a specific questions you want answered on a live stream and you want to just ask it not on the stream. You can use that form and I'll be sure to see that. Yeah, I think we're going to wrap up today as we've been going for about 90 minutes now. Again, thanks to Nicholas today for becoming a channel member. If you are interested in becoming a channel member yourself, just hit the join button below. We've got some affordable options there if you want to support us on a monthly basis. Otherwise, give a super thanks on your favorite video on the channel for whatever amount you want to. That just says thanks to us, and it also helps us understand what content you're loving the most. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, we do have a free weekly review guide. So if you go to weeklyreviewchecklist.net, you can sign up for our free member site at thinkeffective.co and get access to weekly review, our ultimate guide to an effective weekly review, plus a number of other free resources. There's an ebook called Remote Work 101, talking about the 5 key skills you need to be effective at remote work. There's an annual review template if you're interested in doing an annual review. You can sign up there, thinkeffective.co. But if you want to get the weekly review checklist in particular, go to weeklyreviewchecklist.net. Again, it's completely free. With that, thanks for joining today's live stream. I really appreciate the conversations that we had. Thank you for helping me sort out some of the big picture decisions I need to make for my own productivity system. We are going to do a stream next week. It's not going to be on Thursday because I have a prior obligation that day. So be watching your subscriptions feed on YouTube for when that gets scheduled. Yeah, you're very welcome for the chill educational stream. That's kind of my deal. I love sitting and talking through ideas. I don't like getting all hyped up about stuff. So it's just kind of not really my personality, but you're very welcome. Thanks for hanging out here and joining us today. We will be back at it next week. Be watching for that event to come through on YouTube. It'll either be on Wednesday or on Friday. Until then, stay effective. We'll talk the next time.